These two games right here, these two steelbooks that I have, are 15, almost 16 years apart. There have been children in this world, conceived, born, learned to walk, talk, grown up their entire childhood, and entered high school in between the release of these two games. And for me, that was kind of a big moment of realization of just how long Black Ops has been around. Before I always do my yearly big review of the latest Call of Duty title, instead of rushing it out to be the first review out there, of people who maybe have barely played the game but just want it to be the first video, leading to maybe shallow, if sometimes uninformed opinions, personally, I like to wait a few months to not only get thorough playtime and really sink my teeth into everything the game has to offer, but also to see how the studio handles the game from the perspective of post-launch, as sometimes is the case that a game had a rough launch, but they actually managed to pull themselves together quite a bit near the end and to really make something special. I'd argue that you could make this case for the new Modern Warfare 3. While I do stand by pretty much all of my opinions that I said in that video, the game did objectively just improve near the end of its life cycle in almost all modes. While not all of them got equal love, they did have an impressive launch season, which helped with the game's reputation and player base that it still had remaining. With that being said though, why am I here now? Why did I decide to make my yearly review at this point? Well, there are many answers to that question, but the main and perhaps most important one is that I am unbelievably fired up about Black Ops 7 and the way that it has been handled. I don't have the patience at this point to wait for months while the writing for this game is already on the wall. As a lifelong fan of the Black Ops series, a game franchise that has literally shaped my identity and given me the career that I have and the friends that I've made, to see it be treated so flippantly and disrespectfully has gotten me inspired to talk about this now. Not only that, but what really made me pull the trigger was that Call of Duty themselves releasing an apology in a statement acknowledging the failures and shortcomings of Black Ops 7 and trying to reassure us that they are committed to making Black Ops 7, and I quote, one of the best Black Ops games we've ever made.
They did a good job last time around in Black Ops 2, but this time around it looks more better.
First of all, that already implies that it currently isn't, but this whole statement just reads like a funeral eulogy. And maybe that's actually appropriate because the more I think about it, the more I've come to the conclusion that it might be time for Black Ops to die.
With Call of Duty Black Ops, we wanted to take players to an entirely new place and give them entirely new gameplay experiences, something they hadn't done yet with Call of Duty. And it just inspired all kinds of creativity and let us go and do things that Call of Duty hadn't done yet.
We're excited to finally talk about our brand new game, launching this year, Black Ops 7. This is a story we've been building for years, a world shaped by the consequences of choices made long before. Throughout development, we found meaningful opportunities to reconnect with characters and storylines from earlier Black Ops titles.
We chose this era, we chose Black Ops, because we wanted to do things that players hadn't yet experienced.
It's such a good period of time because how have these characters changed over the last 10 years? We have this sweet spot here to really open up some new relationships between characters.
It would suck to get kicked and punched by her.
Some of the leads and I were talking about what was next, and we really wanted to take on something totally new, something that was ownable by us.
I can say that you are definitely going to see some of the most trippy shit you have ever seen in a Call of Duty campaign.
People at Treyarch are really, really excited about Call of Duty Black Ops. It's our chance to do something totally new with Call of Duty.
Things are going to progressively get really, really crazy the more you play.
It would suck to get kicked and punched by her.
I didn't think I would ever be uttering the words, "I want Black Ops to be done." I can recall being in high school with my friends and we'd all get online in the evenings after school to play Black Ops 2 and joking that by the time we have kids, we'd be playing Black Ops 7 or 8 with them or whatever. And at the time, that seemed like a far-fetched joke and somewhat unrealistic. Yet the reality is that Black Ops 7 not only exists, but there are people who grew up on the originals who are playing this game with their kids. Matter of fact, I had a really weird experience playing BO BO7 multiplayer, I felt like this Call of Duty, more than any other one, is where I heard the most amount of people, hot micing in the lobby, and you can hear like their kids, wreaking havoc in the background and them yelling at them or what. You know what I'm talking about. You know the people that have hot mics and you can clearly tell that there's like young kids around. And I guess I just had this realization, like, yeah, a lot of people that I was probably playing Black Ops 1 or 2 with back in the day are all probably grown and have kids of their own now, and that's what I'm hearing on the mic in Black Ops 7. It was just a weird, like, eye-opening experience, but I've always had an affinity for the Black Ops Call of Duty games, namely because they are the birthplace and the home of zombies, but also just because of the much different tone and approach these games took, and that really worked for me. I made a massive video not long ago looking at the original Black Ops trilogy in great detail to really see why and what made those games so special, and how Black Ops may have lost its magic along the way. You can go watch that video if you want to, so I'm not going to reiterate the entire video here, but suffice to say, Black Ops came about because Treyarch was in the position where they were forced to do something really different to stand out next to Infinity Ward, who was, at the time, the clear-cut winner of Call of Duty's brand identity. Black Ops, on the other hand, became Treyarch's flagship IP, taking a more almost intellectual, psychological, and I would argue at times deeper approach to the game. The spirit of Black Ops was that you felt in making discoveries in any part of the game was stuff that you really weren't supposed to be seeing. The main menu of Black Ops 1 leading directly into the mysterious terminal where you can find secret logs and tons of hidden info that feels like you really aren't supposed to be seeing this stuff. There are plenty of examples like this. It's all over the original DNA of Black Ops, but beyond all of the literal pieces that make up the Black Ops titles, right? Woods, Mason, The Numbers, Menendez, The Frozen Forest, Dr. Salim, Nova 6, and so on. Beyond all of these lies the spirit of what Black Ops is, and that is the spirit of risk-taking and pushing boundaries, to a point of making things uncomfortable or challenging at certain points, either challenging you from a gameplay standpoint, but often challenging from a storytelling and narrative as well. You'll never understand the Black Ops 3 story without challenging yourself to dig a bit deeper. Again, this is the stuff I talked about in that other video, so I just want you to hold that spirit of what Black Ops is all about in your mind, because as we investigate this game further, it only becomes more obvious about how that spirit is largely dead, in substitute for a more palatable, homogenized, safe, and corporate-approved experience. The days of having a small group of dedicated, nerdy craftsmen who are all really good at their particular thing to help all come together and make this really cool experience are gone, and now what we have in comparison is a much more broadly appealing game that ultimately satisfies no one. But the problems with Black Ops don't end there, as the vast majority of the creative minds who pioneered Black Ops, the people responsible for the birth of that spirit, have largely left the studio and, for the most part, are not even working at Treyarch anymore. As I've mentioned, there are some Treyarch devs still there from the original Black Ops days, for sure. Some have been moved up in the company over the years, but the creative leaders of the IP are just simply not the ones in charge of Black Ops today. This is a problem rippling far into the rest of the game. In fact, Treyarch has not made their own campaign in-house for 6 years. The last campaign made in-house by Treyarch was Black Ops 3, and that is controversial for its own reasons, of course, primarily due to the fact that nothing was really working and they had to try something insane because time was running out. Black Ops 4 famously had its campaign cut, but it was a weird and different 2v2 like PvP mode that never really got off the ground under Jason Blundell's direction and was ultimately scrapped. Then, of course, we all know what happens next. Modern Warfare 2019 comes out and the entire Call of Duty paradigm would shift. The following Black Ops campaigns, Cold War, Black Ops 6, and 7 were directed and produced by Raven Software, and after experiencing Black Ops 7's campaign, with all due respect, Raven, y'all should never be in charge of a Black Ops campaign again, because you simply don't get it anymore.
Things are gonna progressively get really, really crazy the more you play.
And I mean that Raven doesn't understand the spirit of Black Ops at all. Sure, yeah, these people know Woods and Menendez and Mason, but they are completely unable to see and understand the nuances of what made the old ones work. And frankly, I just don't think they possess the required skills or talent to write Black Ops stories. And, you know, I just thought of this. Maybe one of the reasons the original Treyarch team was having a hard time making Black Ops 3 for a while is because Black Ops 2 didn't need a sequel. Maybe they tried to make a sequel story to Black Ops 2 and realized it was dumb.
Why are we bringing him back?
So much story there.
They talk about how there's so much story to tell here, but honestly, there really isn't, in my eyes anyways. The story of the world in 2025 with David Mason and Menendez was perfectly done here and didn't really need to be continued. It has a beautiful ending, well, depending on which one you pick, and also all of the other, you know, threads and scraps are kind of the fun of speculating about Black Ops. A lot of these things are answered in Black Ops 3, but really, like, you kind of have to go digging for that, but also just leaving it slightly open-ended is kind of the spirit of Black Ops, as it were. But in Black Ops 7, we are literally grasping at straws. It's like they're like, what story do we tell? Samuels, that random guy in the LA mission.
What's his story?
After protecting the president alongside David and Harper back in Black Ops 2, he formed a deep respect for David. Resigning from the Secret Service and joining his elite JSOC team, Samuels believed he could make a greater impact at David's side.
There's no story left to tell here, and this is evident by the massively constrained Black Ops timeline right now. Just look at this graphic and you can see how there's really nowhere else to go at this point. They are so creatively boxed in by all of this canon and lore that they now have to respect and write around, but in the early days, they could literally go wherever they want with this. To me, this is a timeline that has just reached its end. You can't do anything else now without going into the very far future. And I know I've been critical of Raven Software, and I really believe they should never write a Black Ops story again, but I'm not saying that Raven can't make their own style of campaign, because, you know, from a gameplay perspective, what I played in Cold War and Black Ops 6 is actually pretty good, you know, speaking purely from the perspective of gameplay, but they need to find something new that isn't Black Ops and that they're good at and have their own style for. They do have the talent and capability to make fun and engaging gameplay sequences. They just need to find an identity that isn't Black Ops anymore, because it's not theirs and really never was. Just how, you know, IW and Treyarch had their own respective identities, Raven needs to find their thing now. Because as it stands currently, Raven, and to a lesser extent, New Treyarch, are skinwalking the IP of Black Ops when the people who made it originally are long gone at this point. And no, I'm not saying that these people should stop making games or aren't capable of making cool stuff, because I don't believe that at all. There are still insanely talented and passionate developers at both of these studios. What I am saying, though, is that Black Ops is just not for them. This is a new team, a new set of leaders, new values, ideas, and talents, and ones that aren't really cut out for carrying on Black Ops, as it were. Or hell, I just want to see them try something else if, you know, they're insistent on Raven making campaigns still. Or I'd like to see Treyarch take a crack at it and take a small team to make something cool in-house for once. But at the end of the day, Black Ops 7 has just reinforced my feeling that even though Black Ops makes billions of dollars for Call of Duty and is a household name, I really do think it's time for them to retire the Black Ops brand and lay it to rest. And this new team should really venture into something new that can be their new identity going forward. In an ideal world, that's what I'd like to see. Now, what gives me doubts about this is that in the Call of Duty apology they released, they specifically mentioned that they won't be releasing Modern Warfare or Black Ops titles back-to-back anymore. They didn't say they were done with them. And while I'm here, that kind of brings up the other thing I wanted to quickly address, which is the fact that we know both Modern Warfare 2 and 3 were pretty much developed back-to-back, and thus Black Ops 6 and 7 were also developed at the exact same time. And again, this is a strategy I sniffed out a couple of years ago where I felt like Activision was trying to double dip on games. This time, they got caught and it wasn't going to go over well. It becomes extraordinarily clear that Microsoft or Activision or whoever wanted to make Call of Duty more easy to produce instead of making Call of Duty a better game, because that's why they had Treyarch get on the unified engine that IW and all of the other studios are working on, because now they can port assets cross and back and forth between all the games. They can do carry forward. They can make, you know, Call of Duty this giant ambiguous just mess, when we all know as fans of Call of Duty before that each game felt special and unique and different in their own way. This was very apparent in the old Black Ops and Modern Warfare games because they were on different engines, because they made vastly different choices, they felt different. And Call of Duty now even acknowledges that, saying that they want to provide more unique experiences going forward. But Black Ops 6 and 7 being developed at the same time, even though, yeah, it's in a different time setting or whatever, it's going to be largely the same game. And on top of that, they wanted to charge the price of a full game. When I was at Treyarch, we were actually talking to the devs about how are you going to justify the content of this game being worth the purchase of a brand new $70 title, because if it is largely the same gameplay experiences as Black Ops 6, it's going to be hard to sell it on, and they weren't ever really able to give us a satisfying answer, which I found disappointing personally. And the game's already expensive enough, but to make those matters even worse, Call of Duty wants to have it both ways. They want to have the premium experience of an upfront $70 game, but they also want to have the monetization strategy of a free-to-play game, which you can really only pick one lane. Either make this game free for everyone, and yeah, you can have all of the skins and bundles you want, or make this a truly premium experience, and you gotta leave that stuff intact. Before BO7 came out, they had ended up canceling Carry Forward, which would have brought Black Ops 6 content to Black Ops 7, and I think canceling this was a very good idea because, you know, as much people wanted to say that it was anti-consumer to cancel Carry Forward, I feel like it was completely the opposite, as Carry Forward allows them just to continue the cycle of recycling content they've already made and selling it back to you for $70, when in reality, we should be pushing studios and Activision to make more unique games that are actually new. If you're going to sell it as a new game, this was my argument with MW3 a couple of years ago. If you're going to advertise it as a new game, it must be a new game, point blank, period. That means the old content, by and large, should not carry over to the next game, so that you're actually forced to develop new content to justify that price tag.
It's the cost of progress, you ape.
I think that's the most pro-consumer choice about it is, yeah, we want studios to be giving us brand new games that are actually different and unique and quality. That's essentially what Carry Forward is the antithesis of, because it just encourages this porting, recycling laziness. Now, I wanted to lay all of that on the table for you so that we can be on the same page and you can get an understanding where I'm coming from as I analyze the rest of the game. You may have seen that Black Ops 7 is the worst-selling Call of Duty game in a very long time, and possibly ever. And there are a lot of reasons for this, but one of them being Activision finally being caught double dipping their games. You know, which if you've seen my other videos, I've mentioned that, but this time they've not been let off the hook. And the poor reception and sales numbers have permanently scarred the reputation of Black Ops 7 and to an extent the rest of the series. And it's highly unfortunate because there are some things to really like about Black Ops 7. The multiplayer and zombies experiences, in my opinion, are actually really well done. They're not all perfect, and we will look at them in more detail later, but it's really the campaign that has completely soured the reputation for most gamers. And I've never played a more disrespectful, embarrassing, self-indulgent, out-of-touch slop in my entire life. It is an utter slap in the face to anyone who truly and deeply cares about the Black Ops stories and their legacy. Black Ops 7 is a game that is attempting to be a true spiritual successor to Black Ops 2. Invoking that name brings so much history, weight, and legacy alongside it that you cannot just carelessly throw that word around. Is this a Black Ops 2 sequel in the sense that it literally takes place after the events of BO2? Yeah, sure it is. However, is BO7 a true successor respecting the spirit and vision that was woven into the very fabric and DNA of BO2? Not even one bit.
From the start, our goal was to tell a story that could stand on its own while also honoring the legacy of the series. From the start, our goal was to tell a story that could stand on its own while also honoring the legacy of the series. The
online reception to the gameplay reveal trailer wasn't ideal, but would you be able to talk me through your responsibilities as a creative director and, managing team morale in response to negativity?
It's not about the swirling, I would say, negativity. It's more about what are they trying to tell us that we can extract and really think through critically, and then through our lens of creativity. put back into the game so that we can squash it or make it better. You can get lost in the other stuff, and so it's really important as a developer to be able to weed through and navigate that, and so we're constantly talking to the team about that and helping them.
And look, I don't want to be a microphone bro that just gets on here to complain and spread noise, apparently, that shouldn't be listened to, so I am going to provide some genuine constructive feedback on how to improve near the end of this. But first, let me have my moment to express how strongly I feel betrayed by this campaign experience. And I say this without any amount of irony. This is not a joke. I legitimately had to give this campaign score a 0 out of 10, and you're about to see why. It is time to finally talk about the Black Ops 7 campaign. Call of Duty campaigns for the last 5 or 6 years haven't really been all that great, with your occasional decent one here and there. Since Modern Warfare 2019, they've all taken the exact same approach with structure, style, and storytelling. All of the games from this era have been in the exact same format, which is a mission followed by a dramatic cinematic over and over again. In my Black Ops Trilogy video, I had mentioned how truly important immersion is. Immersion is the delicate balance of letting the player forget that they're playing a game and let them truly exist in that world, even if just for a moment. This includes, but is not limited to, keeping the HUD very minimal, quiet moments for reflection and thought, immersive choices and game-altering decisions, being the one to actually push the button and pull the triggers, and so on. Basically, the classic COD games were much less reliant on the bland and boring cutscenes to slap in between missions, where potentially a lot of really interesting, not only gameplay sequences, but compelling story moments as well could take place in the spot of these cutscenes now. And it's bad enough that Treyarch isn't even making their own campaigns in-house anymore, but also Raven hires this other third-party company to make these cinematics for the campaign experience. So for a moment, think about how impossible it is to tell a cohesive, enriching story that has a clear vision when making it. You basically let 8 different studios all put their hands in it and then alter the way that things look and feel, and it's impossible to actually come up with something very pointed and direct. The point is, with this configuration, it's literally impossible to tell a really good, mind-blowing campaign when the ideas and execution are so focused and broad and outsourced. Now, some of you might have the reasonable objection and say, well, Chopper, nobody cares or plays campaigns anymore, so who cares if they suck? And to a point, I get what you mean. Compared to 20 years ago, the main selling point of Call of Duty isn't really the campaign anymore, sure, but you also have to remember that the campaign is what grounds the rest of the game and gives purpose and meaning to the things that are in it. The campaign is always the most foundational layer that everything else is built on. Without the Black Ops 1 campaign, there's no way that Black Ops, as it were, would have been as iconic or popular as it is today. Black Ops 4, of course, didn't have a campaign and suffered greatly for it. In fact, I think you can actually say the campaign is kind of a temperature gauge about how the rest of the game is coming along. And funnily enough, here's a quote from Jason Blundell, who was the creative lead behind many of the classic Black Ops games. He says, in his personal view, the death of campaign and the death of storytelling is the death of society. As a medium, we have to tell stories. For Black Ops, it's absolutely essential to continue the art of storytelling. So whether you personally think having campaigns is important or not, in a COD, and if you think it's coincidental that after this was said, the next Black Ops game would not have a campaign, and you might consider, everything from this point forward to be a significant downward trend, is really up to your judgment. But what you can say at the very least is that it was important to the original minds behind Black Ops that the art of storytelling and campaigns is absolutely essential to the DNA of it. So anyways, Black Ops 7 takes place a few years after the events of Black Ops 2, in 2035 to be exact. We open up in a graveyard where David Mason visits Woods' grave and talks to Troy Marshall about something going on with the guild and Raul Menendez being back to the world. But of course, Treyarch, tried to be tight-lipped about, is Menendez really dead or not? But most of us knew that according to Black Ops 3, canonically he was killed by David Mason at the end of Black Ops 2. While they didn't outright confirm that ending, it was pretty obvious to anybody who really knew anything about this stuff. So of course, we're going to be at least a little bit suspicious if that's really him or not from the very beginning. Plus, not to mention, David Mason was born in 1979. So here, in 2035, this would would make him almost 60 years old in Black Ops 7. You expect me to believe this man is almost 60, and poor Michael Rooker, he looks so old. In fact, they even make a comment about him and why he hasn't retired yet.
So surprised you went through with it, Hopper.
Yeah, well, it's either that or retirement, so I chose a damn chip in my head.
As long as you pay me, I could do anything.
What's crazy is that David Mason in BO7 is pretty much the same age as wheelchair Grandpa Woods in BO6. Like, why are all these elderly men still running around doing all this stuff? I mean, you could make the same argument about, like, YouTubers, but anyways, sure, you could argue that they have their C-links or whatever, but other than the new character 50/50, I don't think any of them have any real serious augmentations. I don't know, who cares? It doesn't really matter. We open up by trying to track down Raul Menendez to get to the bottom of him possibly being back. Now, before I talk any more about the absurdity of the story, I need to shift gears to gameplay for a little bit to explain why I am absolutely revolted by it. Okay, this is a co-op campaign. I mean, it's advertised on the menu as such, so they most certainly intended most people to experience it in co-op, but Treyarch went on the record saying that this campaign is also made for solo. They definitely didn't leave them out, and that was an important piece of the experience. So solo play still needs to be intact, but it really goes to highlight all of the shortcomings of this campaign when you do play it solo like I did. For starters, look at the damn HUD. This is immediately off-putting and unnecessary. Why do I need to see my own gamer name tag in a solo game in a campaign? Do I need to see a health bar or armor plates? Why is there a full MP-style minimap? Why are there weapon rarities in the campaign? Why do enemies have pop-up name tags and health bars? Why am I completing daily challenges, unlocking camos, and getting weapon rank? This right here is a real campaign screenshot. I just want you to really look at this for a second. This is the single-player story that is meant to tell the next twisted chapter in the Black Ops universe. It definitely doesn't look like a cheap mobile game.
In Black Ops 2, Raul Menendez was seemingly killed. Now in 2035, he's back.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
My name is Raul Menendez, and as you can see, I'm alive and well.
It's huge for players because we know they never want to feel like their time's wasted. We heard you. Go play with your friends anywhere, and you'll be rewarded.
They say they don't want us to feel like our time was being wasted, so they let us get like weapon rank and prestiging and all this stuff during the campaign, when I feel like there's a much more straightforward solution. I wouldn't feel like my time was being wasted if you actually provided a really good campaign experience. I never felt like I was wasting my time on good campaigns in the past, even if I wasn't like leveling up or whatever, because they were so inherently engaging that we didn't need all this extra shit to keep TikTok-brained 6-7 kids interested. So right off the bat, my immersion is already shot because all of this unnecessary garbage on the screen. But to make matters even worse, in solo play, which they apparently accounted for, there are no friendly NPCs with you. Dog, even the Black Ops 3 campaign, which was also co-op, had friendly NPCs. This makes missions feel incredibly disconnected from the cinematics and story, but also awkward. I'm playing as David Mason right now. Why am I also hearing his voice through comms and not from a first-person point of view? I get they were banking on lots of people probably playing this in co-op, but the solo experience feels so neglected here, even though that they said it wasn't. The other thing with gameplay is that because we now have weapon rarities in the campaign, this is a damage-based gameplay system where enemies have health bars and are very bullet spongy here. The only complaint that I truly have with this is that just subjectively, to me, it does not feel good to shoot enemies with almost an entire mag before they go down in the campaign. Again, immersion breaking because instead of feel like I'm using a real and deadly firearm, it just feels like I'm shooting paintball guns. Why am I getting score splash pop-ups when shooting campaign enemies? This is all just so frustrating to me because it's like, how do you misunderstand the point of campaigns this badly? And this is all experienced in your very first mission, and believe me, it only gets much worse from here.
Your blood pressure's up. Take a breath.
Now, it's crucial to mention the fact that the big campaign innovation Raven or Treyarch or whoever is going for is this new endgame mode, which is essentially a DMZ or MWZ style extraction RPG mode that is meant to be played after the campaign story. And what's funny is that you were not supposed to have access to this mode until after you've completed the entire campaign. That's kind of why it's called endgame. But I have to imagine player numbers were so abysmally bad and completion rates were in the dumpster, so they, in order to actually be able to fill lobbies, they had to make endgame playable for everyone, regardless if you've completed the main campaign or not. I understand the campaign is meant to be like a glorified tutorial mode for endgame, so stuff like weapon rarities and the general mission structure is designed around teaching you how endgame works. I get why they did it this way, but I think sacrificing a truly memorable and well-crafted campaign experience for endgame is just not a good trade-off. And again, if they're just going to make it available for everybody, why even make it so connected to the campaign instead of just it being its own mode? Anyways, enough on the gameplay for now, back to the story. So, David Mason, Harper, Samuels, and 50/50 infiltrate the guild here to find the Menendez broadcast when suddenly, when escaping the facility, they're caught what they believe to be Raul Menendez. In this moment, I really don't know if they honestly expected players to believe that this was Menendez. This moment doesn't work at all for so many reasons. Firstly, okay, the year is 2035, making David, as we said, almost 60 years old, and that would make Raul Menendez almost 80 at this point. Are we really supposed to believe this geriatric man who's supposed to be dead is really alive? They don't even let you think about that for very long, though, because immediately Emma Kagan, CEO of the guild, pops up to let you know that it was a deep fake or whatever, as if we already didn't outright suspect that. Like, in our real world, the term deep fake is already kind of outdated. That was like a 2017, 2018 thing. Don't you think by 2035, more people would be privy to the kind of trickery that these AI systems can create? It just really seems dated and not believable from the perspective of the story to me. I would be genuinely shocked if there was anyone out there who actually believed in this moment that this was the real Raul Menendez. It was just executed so poorly. After Emma reveals herself to JSOC, she released this like toxic gas in the chamber that they're in, while an unaugmented scientists go crazy and kill each other. The ceilings inside of all of our squad members are able to blunt the effects a little bit, having shared hallucinations as they're connected but not losing it fully. So this little trip leads us to Nicaragua, where Raul Menendez broke free in Black Ops 2, and this is where we get Marvel-level cringe, quippy dialogue the entire time. Samuels or Harper are constantly stating the obvious.
Ahead. There is no escaping me. Are these floating fucking rocks? Did a giant fucking machete just drop out of the sky? Alright, I've seen crazy, but this shit takes the goddamn cake.
So you go through and shoot through a bunch of toy plastic soldiers. Keep in mind that our characters still exist in reality, but we're seeing them as in the hallucination. This leads to one of the most embarrassing moments in the whole campaign. I mean, lads, it's mission 1, and, you know, there's not really much build-up or easing you into any of this stuff. You find out that the twist or something is that Raul Menendez is an AI deepfake. Whoa.
Not me you want.
I don't believe in ghosts.
No need to. Or to seek me out. I am already right here with you.
And now you have a boss fight against Raul Menendez, fake Grok Chat GPT self or whatever. Just look at your screen right now and ask yourself, is this what a Call of Duty campaign is supposed to look like? Raul Menendez says corny-ass things that he would never say. In BO2, Menendez was always saying something like abstract or esoteric in his speech, saying stuff like, opulence is a sin and we all pay for it. Now he says things like, they absolutely undermine and disrespect figuratively and literally and defile the grave of the real Raul Menendez. He was my favorite Call of Duty villain ever, but he's literally not even the same character anymore. I don't know who this is, but it's not him. So why bring him back if you're just going to write him in a way that isn't true to the character whatsoever? Also, you can probably see that this is a boss fight with a full-on health bar, and look, I'm a Zombies player. I'm an Elden Ring and Souls game enjoyer. I'm no stranger to enemy boss fights and health bars, but really, do we need to have this in the campaign? Maybe 1 or 2 really good story-driven boss fights at peak moments would be good, but BO7 spams a boss fight at the end of every single mission that are embarrassing and immersion-shattering. Again, look, I love boss fights in video games, and there's some of my favorite, moments ever, but there's a time and place for everything, and the first mission against a fake Persona 5 Raul Menendez is just not the time or place. I mean, it uses the basic principles of your average Zombies boss fight, so it's not all that unfamiliar or shocking to me from a gameplay point of view, but I fail to understand why this needs to be in the campaign. Maybe I just have a much different vision of what campaigns really are and should be for Black Ops, but I know this is not it.
Things are going to progressively get really, really crazy the more you play.
So afterwards, we defeat the fake Menendez, only for our team to realize that they've been out for hours, but they want to figure out why they survived and what they can do about it. So now we get deployed into Avalon to meet up with Karma to get more info on the guild and the chemical agent that got used. And just look at how you spawn in here. I really don't think it's just me, but the recent Black Ops games have felt so weak and lame to some degree because it's just too fictional now, without any of its edge or bite. There's really no brutal or uncomfortable moments that push the line. Jason Blundell had mentioned that he had to get 3 separate Activision meetings just to get that one scene in Black Ops 3 where the robot brutally attacks you to be approved in the game. But even before then, it all had this element of authenticity to it. Even though it was ultimately a fictional story, Black Ops 1 and 2 still felt plausible and uncomfortably real. Real locations, real people, real things. But this? I mean, really? Avalon? This fake-ass fictional area that they are hyper-focused on expanding, a fake chemical agent and a fake villain. I just feel like these Black Ops campaigns are too safe now, in the sense that they're afraid to push the line of gritty and serious, or even just having a serious moment every now and again. Comparing World at War or Black Ops 1 to these happy-ass mobile game colors is really difficult to stomach when I'm trying to take your campaign seriously. But we push through the streets of Avalon to meet up with Karma. Yes, that tech girl from Black Ops 2, but when you see her for the first time in this game, she doesn't need saving. She's a badass combat lady now because of course she is.
It would suck to get kicked and punched by her.
Do you remember in Black Ops 2 when she literally needed saving multiple times? I'm not saying all girl characters need to be written this way. 50-50 isn't, and that's completely fine. But Karma was the brains, but very vulnerable at the same time. That's what gave her character stakes and actually made it mean something, because she was very vulnerable, either being, captured at the club or potentially even being shot on the USS Obama. She was literally the key to solving all of this, but she was extremely vulnerable, meaning that you had to step up and take that responsibility for keeping her alive, which added some stakes to the game. What I have a problem with is rewriting the character to be a different way that wasn't how they were in your own source material. It makes Karma feel like a completely different person. Again, all of this is skinwalking the IP and characters of Black Ops without it really being them, but if you peel back the layers, it's anything but. And I had given them credit up to this point that even though they don't understand the abstract spirit of Black Ops, they at least understood the literal events, but I think I might have to retract that statement, because as I was making this video, I realized I don't think it actually makes sense to have Karma and Harper in the game, because in BO2, of course, there's all these different moments where you can make a choice, and in this mission, Farid either kills Harper or tries to kill Menendez and then dies for it. So either one option is Harper's dead, which, he's clearly not. He's right here, which means Farid died. But if Farid dies, then that means he's not there on the USS Obama to jump in front of the bullet that saves Karma. So if Farid is dead, that also would mean that Karma would be dead, right? Unless I'm missing something. I just don't think it actually makes sense for them to have both characters in the game, even just literally. So I don't know if they even understand the literal events of it at this point.
Our goal was to tell a story that could stand on its own, while also honoring the legacy of the series.
So Karma is like, hey, I hacked the thing and found a guild insider that can tell us more about the chemical agent spreading, but now you got to get his biometrics and find him. So JSOC goes to the docks of Avalon, and we narrow down the insider target to a shipping container. When we open it up, we see that it's leaking with the same chemicals as before, but one of the men are actually still alive and we can interrogate him. This triggers yet another shared hallucination amongst the team, but this time Harper knows it's a hallucination, and David starts hearing the voice of Frank Woods, and so it pushes him to investigate. We go throughout the Angola mission as we get closer to Woods' voice, and the shipping crate on the boat eventually gets unlocked. Samuel suggests that deactivating their C-links for a couple of seconds just to see what happens. This triggers a more personal hallucination, which we are in basically the psyche of Frank Woods. We're seeing his echoes and memories in snippets with Menendez and what ultimately happened to Alex Mason. Woods torments himself for thinking that the target was Menendez, but was actually the one to kill David's father by his own hand. So after you battle through more slot monsters, we come face to face with Woods, or so we think, tormented by his past, and he tells David to save himself and leave it alone, before turning into Stranger Things.
Save yourself!
And this initiates, you guessed it, another embarrassing boss fight, this time against a big flower. This time, you shoot the little flowers until it's blowed up. Riveting stuff, lads, I know.
Things are going to progressively get really
The end of this fight leads to David and Woods having a moment where Woods blames himself and is truly broken from what he did, and Mason tells him to forgive himself since he knows he didn't mean to kill Alex. And alright, this story moment is fine or whatever, but we already did this moment in Black Ops 2, and that was with the real Woods. We did this whole character arc where Woods, blames himself. It's not new. It was one of the more tolerable character moments in BO7, but that's only because the story foundation were laid back in an actually good Black Ops campaign in the past.
There's nothing you could have done, Frank. It wasn't your fault.
The real insider calls the chemical agent that was used Cradle, which should be no surprise if you played Black Ops 6 because it looks the same. It literally has the same color, does the same thing. It's the entire linchpin of that plot. So I don't know why this had to be a big reveal for later. Oh, because we need to stretch the runtime of this game. And then some more boring stuff happens, and then JSOC confirms that Spectre 2 team is heading to Japan to locate an important guy that has a quantum computer or something. This time you play as a dude named Razor, and with a whole new set of operatives. I'm not gonna lie, lads, almost all of these characters are really unimportant to the story and boring, so I'm not gonna go into the detail of who they are, but look guys, it's Hijacked. Remember Hijacked from the old game? Now you can kill plastic soldiers on your favorite multiplayer map from old game. Razor eventually runs the ship aground and gets into the secret Tokyo base and then finds the thing. He has to EMP the whole city to escape alive. Back at the base, Harper loses an arm wrestling match to a robot-armed girl and then gets made fun of. Razor then gets on the comms and calls David to say that someone's sus. And David goes, all right, okay, bye. And then they get attacked by some drones and then the scene ends. So we're back to Avalon to find more insider information because Karma says one of the drones being recovered could allow her to track down more guild activity or whatever. It could recreate the flight path it takes or something. So point is, we have to fight through more guild forces to push our way through to the crash drone that houses all of its data. Sometimes when playing, I forget that I'm literally supposed to be with my teammates because there's not these friendly NPCs. It almost kind of shocks me when it goes into a cutscene and I see that there's a bunch of other people. It's just weird. Again, it's like clearly didn't make this for solo. But anyways, we push towards the drone, and when we get there, one of the worst moments ever happens. Hey Samuels, what's wrong? Are you having flashbacks of old game 2? Guys, remember Black Ops 2?
We get to dig into twisted versions of their memories. It really plays on their fears.
This mission is about Samuels. Remember that guy that showed up for 5 seconds at the beginning of the LA mission in BO2?
What's his story?
I mean, I knew they were gonna do it because it was, showed off in the trailer and such before the game came out. But lads, come on, the barrel is scraped at this point. Did we really need a mission that explains that Samuels was a coward who wanted to save himself in this this moment. This is a flimsy writing and character arc excuse to slap missions and set pieces that we loved from an old game. Sure, it's a little different here, right, with all the twisted and jump puzzles, which is kind of neat, I guess, but was this really necessary for the plot of the game to learn about Samuel's backstory? Samuel's.
What's his story?
But it doesn't stop there, because by the time we actually uncover and rescue the drone, then 50/50 has a flashback. 50/50.
Now, what's her story?
So of course, we now have to go into her memory to see her trauma. Honestly, this segment is pretty short and uneventful. She was in Japan and there was like a massacre that she had been caught up in and trying to be brave and save people, defying orders, and her augments got messed up pretty badly, and so under the promise of service, she, tried to save as many people as possible. Not much else to say here really, so why was this even necessary? 50/50.
Now, what's her story?
This then leads immediately into Harper's trauma segment, because he's the last one we haven't done, besides Mason, of course. And this shows the USS Obama and the ship ran by General Briggs in Black Ops 2, where Salazar betrayed the team and sold them out to Menendez's control. Now, I was absolutely baffled that they chose this to be Harper's trauma, because sure, Harper hated Salazar from what happened at this point in the game. That much is obvious. But don't you think it would have been 1,000 times more effective if we did this moment instead? Do you remember when Farid was like a double agent under Menendez, but he had to make the choice to either shoot Harper or use that moment to try to kill Menendez? That's his friend. Farid actually dies, trying to keep and spare Harper's life. Why is this not Harper's trauma moment?
What's his story?
They could have done this in a way where he has this like massive survivor's guilt for still living while his friend gave up his life when face to face with Menendez. I feel like it writes itself. How did they not do this? It seems so obvious to me, but they take the member berries route, the least risky and least impactful route of all. This culminates in Harper losing it and wanting the traitor dead, leading to possibly one of the most disrespectful abominations so far in BO7. And this is the big meme everyone knows about, right? This has pretty much become the face of the BO7 campaign, the giant Harper boss fight. It's obviously the most visually striking moment in the story, and not for any good reasons. As I was playing this, I feel like they looked at the Black Ops 3 campaign and went, yo, we got to make this all over the top and so crazy, without having any understanding of the wit and intention of why the Black Ops 3 campaign is the way that it is.
Things are going to progressively get really, really crazy the more you play.
Also, in that campaign, the Black Ops 3 campaign has its own issues, but one of the good things is that Hendricks and like the main character, so to speak, loses their mind slowly and gradually, when in this game it's just, oh, you got exposed to Cradle, all right, it gets crazy now. There's no nuance to it anymore. And, basically, I actually gave up at this point trying to take it seriously. You kill the fake Harper thing, 50/50 stops an entire train with her arm, and then Harper goes, hey guys, what's up? And then the scene ends. Harper.
What's his story?
Go over there. Go over there, so I'll play.
Kenneth Legos after 21.
I love how each mission, instead of seamlessly and immersively dropping you into the world, we have like a multiplayer map splash menu screen before the mission starts. It's huge, honestly. I love it. Karma tells us that the thing Razor found also gave us data on it, and it leads to a Cradle scientist named Dr. Faulkner. So, of course, we have to go track him down. But look, guys, it's Black Ops 6. Do you remember Black Ops 6? Good times, am I right? We locate the doctor, fight more zombies, and then we have a super awkward interaction that, again, could be tense if they actually wanted it to be. Like, I almost compare this moment to Black Ops 1 where you're interrogating Clark, right? When, you break the glass and you put it in his mouth and start punching him and stuff. It's like, it's tense, man. It's real. It's visceral. But I feel like this moment is actually edited for comedy instead. I'm just going to let you watch the clip. This is actually how it plays in the game.
Harper, maybe we should just let him go.
Great idea.
Wait, please. Okay. She told me.
Told you to what?
To find out why the Cradle hasn't killed you. Your cerebral augments really are quite fascinating.
You know what? Drop him.
Killing me won't change anything. I already sent the intel to the Sanctum.
Sanctum? Where is that?
We got what we needed. Let's move out.
Like what? That was it? Did we drop him? Did we get the info? I don't know what happened there. I feel like I missed something. This moment, though, kind of sums up the whole feeling of the loss of grittiness and real visceral moments, and it feels like a cartoon parody of Black Ops. So we go down to shut off the cradle deposits. Turns out Razor was the bad guy on the inside, because of course he was, which also ends up being a pointless cartoon boss battle. Razor.
What's his story?
Afterwards, Mason climbs to the top of this guild facility, coming face to face with Emma Kagan, again, who takes the form of his father this time, initiating another hallucination. This time, it is by far the worst one. I have so many problems with this mission that I could write an entire video probably on this level alone, but the hallucinations actually begin inside the Vorkuta prison, which, first of all, unless recalled through Alex's told memories or Woods, David should have really no conception of this place. It doesn't really make sense to be there other than, remember Black Ops 1. Also, there's no mention of Reznov, who was kind of the whole reason Vorkuta means anything. COD actually had this Reznov skin for pre-ordering Black Ops 7, which was quietly walked back before releasing the game, so I don't know if they intended on having him in the game at any point or not, but apparently he's not here anymore. I just don't understand why we're in Vorkuta of all places fighting zombies. This level is actually pretty long, with the worst part coming when David Mason comes back to his childhood home in Alaska. So this is where David comes face to face with his father, who's not really his father. It's like a memory or a hallucination, but he's on the Black Ops chair and we have to free the memories or something stupid. So we go to these 3 locations to play back said memories, and these are Alex and David bonding and showing David like how to be a man and grow up, right? But remember this moment, one of the memories is the tree. Yes, the same tree that we saw David Mason climb and hurt himself at the beginning of BO2. That tree.
What's his story?
But throughout this memory, we hear Alex being a supportive and wholesome father, encouraging him to push on and be brave and climb the tree, saying stuff like, "You can do it, David." But in the BO2 version, that isn't how this moment goes at all. Alex actually has very little patience for David and tells him to quit being a little piss baby. David then says, "I hate you."
Dad, I'm scared.
Don't be scared. Keep climbing, David. You're almost there.
I'm scared. I need help.
You're 7 years old, David. Stop acting like a baby.
I hate you.
How does it feel to have lived long enough to see all of your favorite franchises go down in flames?
Feels great.
None of this is properly conveyed in BO7 for its flat, generic platitude stuff, as the BO2 writers were far too nuanced to boil their relationship down to what's presented here. But sure, they write the characters wrong and have meaningless generic platitudes for all of the memories, but even if you wanted to enjoy this sentimental moment, you can't, because the entire time you're forced to be shooting zombies. Campaigns and stories need proper build-ups and releases of tension and action. This entire campaign is constant brain rot spam, from the visuals on screen to the actions required within the gameplay. It's genuinely absurd, the amount of zombies enemies that get spammed in the missions. Think back to Black Ops 3's campaign. There's that one moment where the zombies spawn. It's like the climax of this mission. It's contextual, it's cool, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. Or in Cold War even, they save the zombies for that one moment near the climax where you fall into that cave. It's creepy, unsettling, and it's a brilliant surprise. It's really well done. And then the novelty of that in Black Ops 7 of zombie enemies wears off really fast, and all you're with left is just a story that disrespects all of the characters involved and has borderline mobile game visuals and gameplay. We do the Vorkuta escape, but this time with zombies, absolutely no aura or tension, and the end of the mission is shooting down a VTOL because future. You know, I would say I'm infuriated by this mission, but by this point, I was just focused on getting through it that I actually didn't have the strength to be upset. I had said prior to this that MW3 was the worst COD campaign ever made, and that's still kind of true, but the reason I give that one like a 1 or 2 out of 10 at least is because it was short. It actually ended. This campaign is really long for absolutely no reason. It's a bloated nothing burger that does not accomplish anything in its nearly 6-hour runtime. Okay, so the whole idea is that the guild is using AI Menendez to stage a cradle attack on the world. Kagan is then using the guild as a means of presenting herself as the savior to sell people hardware that keeps them protected from this biochemical agent. That's her whole goal here. Our team is fighting off the hallucination that manages to narrowly escape Kagan and her forces. When Section and the team attempt to shut down the cradle canisters, Kagan blows them up preemptively, causing a massive dose to escape. This is when Karma tracks down one final location, a Blackheart facility in the ocean. This is where everything comes to a head as the guild main core heart is found in this unsuspecting ocean rig. Now, before we conclude what happens in the story, I want to talk about gameplay one more time, because as the levels have gone on, they have introduced more and more mechanics, puzzles that increase in difficulty, utilizing kill streaks and upgrades in boss fights and so on. Again, the point of this is clearly to prep players for endgame, but I found the bullet sponge, plastic, fake-feeling enemies to be extremely tiresome to shoot at a certain point. It just doesn't feel good to shoot these enemies in a campaign setting. Sure, there's a lot of gameplay mechanics to choose how you play, but when it feels like such a chore to do, it really does take away from the unique and potentially fun systems that are there, dampening the entire thing. Plus, ending every single level with some kind of boss fight confirms to me that like 100 different people are making this campaign, if not a lot more. I imagine one team being in charge of one level, this other team doing a different one, and then they all have to kind of like slap together this Frankenstein thing of missions and layouts at the end. Whatever the case is, it just feels too broad scope to really come to a tight experience and a focused point. This is case in point in the last mission. This one is long, about 3 times the runtime of the first couple of levels. This is the lowermost portion of the Blackheart, and there's a lot of sequences here. One of the biggest when Jasoc gets all the way down to the bottom of the Blackheart to reveal the core. Kagan wants to keep the thing submerged in water so that if we manually force it up, causing it to overheat, and then Kagan walks in to toy with them and then spout off some embarrassing dialogue.
Don't listen to him. He's about to crack and get you all killed.
Because inside that armor beats the heart of a scared little boy kidnapped by Menendez.
I will not kill you, boy. Fuck you. Remember all the years of anger and pain. Martyr me. For Cortes DA.
You're just like your father. A big, fat...
I was just like amazed at the visuals in general. You're right. So advanced and cinematic.
Oh, also, totally forgot to mention this. It was at this point in my game where I was going to run downstairs to help my girlfriend with something, only to realize you cannot pause in a solo campaign. I completely forgot to acknowledge that, but I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. But guys, how do we not have a solo pause function in the big 2025? You know, if I could pause and take a break now and then while playing the story, it may not have been so bad and tiresome, but I had to finish out the finale, which I played all of this in one sitting, which is a boss fight against Emma Kagan and Giant Guild Mech. It's the most mechanically complex boss fight, and you're actually fighting a real enemy and having hallucinations in the environment instead of a hallucinated enemy and like a real background. Either way, it's not a bad boss fight, and had they shown some restraint, this moment at this point could have felt kind of hype. Like if this was the first time an enemy health bar popped up in the entire game, it would have been really cool and an unexpected surprise. But by this point, you're tired, run down, and just wanting it to be over. Once you disable Kagan's mech, David finally confronts her. In a scene obviously reminiscent of his encounter with Menendez at the end of Black Ops 2, but instead of killing her, the mistake he made in the past that still haunts him, he spares her and captures her in a poetic end to David Mason's story or something. The end credit scene made me laugh so hard that I actually think I had tears in my eyes. Okay, so we see at the end this bald dude, and we see Kagan captured, and then this guy punches the screen. You might not recognize him, but he's actually the man we saw with Kagan in the very beginning of the game. We all thought Kagan was like calling the shots and was the big kahuna or whatever, the CEO. But what made me laugh was that they literally already did this twist. Black Ops 6 did this beat for beat where they had the thing where the final shot is some guy looking up who was the same guy in a background scene in the very first mission. Like, you guys already did this twist. I actually could not believe my eyes. I don't believe you guys are this creatively bankrupt, but holy hell, you copy-pasted the exact same twist structure as BO6, and I thought I was lazy. Now, usually, I never talk about seasonal cutscenes because, to me, they're not part of the actual storytelling if they're not presented in the campaign, otherwise it would be included here. But remember how David Mason spared Kagan and didn't shoot her? It's like, okay, that's interesting. Where's this going, right? Here's the Season 1 story trailer.
On your feet, Miss Kagan.
Thorn, you're late.
Mason, right on cue.
This ends now, Thorn.
I'm not here for her. I'm here for you.
Oh, wait. Okay, so why did David say... Oh, it doesn't matter. She got shot in Season 1. Who cares? I don't even know what we're doing at this point, and frankly, I just don't care anymore. You know, okay, I guess this guy Dorn is like the new big shot or whatever and has been calling the shots, and once you beat the campaign is when you get access to the end game, which some people have said is good, others not so much. This is an extraction mode made by the same team that made Modern Warfare Zombies. And you know what? It was fine. I had my fill of that. Modern Warfare Zombies was pretty good. Endgame, for the record, is probably okay and may have some cool story things in it here and there. But to be honest with you, I'm not playing it. After being so disrespected and off-put by the actual campaign, how else am I supposed to take this? I've never been less interested in a game mode when this was the appetizer. When I'm not taking Endgame into account for my rating, you might understand why I give this a 0 out of 10. I tried to load up Endgame for a second to realize, like, yeah, I'm not playing this. It's probably good. There's probably some cool stuff in it, but I'm not going to stick around to find out. So let's put Endgame aside for the time being. It may sound harsh, but I legit cannot find any redeeming qualities about this campaign. I despise the story and direction. The execution is horrific. It's bloated way longer than it should be. And also, literally nothing happens once again. No one dies except, Kagan in Season 1, probably because they couldn't get Kiernan Shipka back anymore. Nothing of any consequence or importance happens, and because they're all so predictable, even down to their twists, I'm not even going to play or stick around to find out if there is cool stuff in Endgame. But I guarantee this crap that Dorn is talking about will, at the end, one way or another, lead into Coalescence in Black Ops 3 because, we eventually have to get there at some point in the timeline. They're so cornered by their own universe that there's nowhere left to go, and everything they do try, they lack the skills to handle it well. Now, I said I'd provide some constructive criticism because it literally cannot get any worse than this. We are at a 0 out of 10 rock bottom. So if you're Treyarch, hell, if you're Activision, what's the plan going forward? In my opinion, you need to make some real systemic changes. If it were up to me, if I were in charge, which, for the record, I'm not, this is what I would do differently. Firstly, campaigns should always be done in-house. Stop outsourcing them to people and companies that don't really get it. You need a clear vision. Next, have a smaller, more passionate team of storytellers write and direct it. One of the problems is that every single damn studio works on making parts of this, leading to just an ambiguous blob of slop with no point. Next, stop making Black Ops. You need a new world where fresh ideas and stories with real stakes can unfold. Stop over-relying on the slop CG cutscenes for every storytelling moment approach. Instead, give us actual more in-game stuff and little moments that the player can feel immersed in. Stop using the format of mission cutscene, mission cutscene. I get it's probably efficient to make campaigns this way, but I think back to like the Infinite Warfare campaign. It was a really good story and it had a unique structure where you could actually pick missions from different planets. There were main planets and side missions. It was very interesting. You can play around with different formats, and I think that's a lot of what makes campaigns so great. Keep the player in the game more often than not, and use cutscenes for effective moments rather than as filler. Raven or Treyarch or whoever, stop trying to be Black Ops. I think it's time that you guys find and do your own new thing. Black Ops feels very old Treyarch, and all I'm saying is there are passionate and talented devs at these studios now, but they need the chance to do something new and groundbreaking for them, just as the old Treyarch devs did for the original Black Ops 15 years ago. It's time to let go. And I know that's scary because Treyarch's entire identity is Black Ops, but unless you have someone in charge that seriously understands the literal and spiritual point of Black Ops and all of that essence, it will always fail. Next, focus on immersion and engaging the player in a world that they can lose themselves in. This goes way farther than Stranger Things boss fights or girl boss hype moments. And lastly, if you're gonna do Black Ops, you need to be willing to take risks and push the line. That is the spirit of all of it. Take some chances and make things gritty and intense and real. With how much the game feels phony now, this will be hard to achieve, but it could be done with the right direction. And I just think that this was the most out of touch, self-aggrandizing, self-indulgent, wannabe interesting slop that you could make for a COD campaign that obliterates the legacy of Black Ops 2. Yeah, like, you know, at the end of the day, it's silly to make fun of, and we got jokes over here and stuff, but I ended the campaign honestly just kind of feeling sad. Sad that this is what Black Ops has become.
What a shame.
Black Ops is now an airplane without a pilot. It's got really no direction anymore, and I just feel like, you know, it's strayed so far at this point from what it was that this is a real inflection point for Treyarch and Raven that they now need to seriously understand that either Black Ops isn't for you and to try to bravely take on something new, or you double down and do Black Ops 8.
Black Ops 8. I look forward to that.
Oh, okay.
For Call of Duty general world.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I always kind of look forward to like, well, what's next? You know, and being a part of it, I think is awesome and rad.
But after I played it, got to digest my thoughts and feelings about this entire experience, I had to wonder, who was BO7 for exactly? It cannot possibly be for actual old school Black Ops fans, because I don't know how you can look at this and just not see it as utterly disrespectful in that sense. Is this a campaign for Gen Alpha? You know, younger gamers these days, that's possible, but they don't know who Viktor Reznov is. They don't know a lot of these like old Black Ops stories, and that's not even to a fault of their own. It's just this has been a long-standing franchise, but if you're making it for, you know, the new generation and making it because COD's player base is aging out, if you're making it for the younger gaming fans, then it feels like the perfect time to actually do something new. If you're making it for the old heads and, you know, for unks, then I don't know why you would make this. I just don't know who this was made to please. It seriously has no target audience, because it certainly wasn't people like us, fans who fell in love with this series many years ago. Either way, I love Black Ops, but as far as campaigns are concerned, I think the magic of them in the context of Black Ops is gone. There has been something lost that can never be returned under its current state. And if they truly do a Black Ops 8 campaign, if it's anything like this, then maybe I just have to accept that these aren't made for me anymore. I hope that's not the case, but only the next few years will tell if they can either course correct from this catastrophic failure. It's gotten so big for itself that Call of Duty has become more business than art and experience.
What's going on? We're here live at COD Next Black Ops 7 maps
and show you what's coming to Black Ops 7 multiplayer. Starting with Blackheart. So hyped for this for content. You're gonna see a lot of your classic dev team. Wow, we could welcome to Call of Duty next. Things going on for 50 years. Here's what he's going to do. Black Ops 7 games. Zombies and Warzone. Mobile still the go. Welcome to Call of Duty.
Join us in Verdansk. We miss you. We need you. I have not finished the full game with zombies. I played Verdansk. Once I played my 30 minutes of zombies.
I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, and we were talking about Black Ops 7's multiplayer, and I feel like this kind of splits into two different beasts, because you can either be talking about the actual integrity of the gameplay, the mechanics, systems, maps, weapons, and, you know, the literal parts of it, or you can be talking about all of the surrounding attributes, the collabs, the skins, the cosmetics, the microtransactions, and all of that other peripheral stuff that kind of bleeds into into the experience, and I feel like they are two totally separate discussions, because Black Ops 7, unfortunately, its multiplayer does have to contend with both of these. Now, it's worth mentioning that over the summer, I got to go to Treyarch a handful of times to play Black Ops 7's multiplayer a little bit early, and even before the beta, it was in a much different state than we see it now. However, in terms of gameplay and what they've done with the actual systems, obviously you guys know that removing skill-based matchmaking, or at least introducing a playlist that significantly reduced it, is basically the biggest bombshell we've ever gotten for a multiplayer experience probably in COD's history. This was them literally flipping the big red switch. At the time of me going to Treyarch to play this and try it out, obviously some of the gameplay systems were different, but they never even mentioned once about the thought of removing skill-based matchmaking, or introduced this matchmaking playlist where skill is minimally considered, as it's noted now. But when the beta came around, after a couple of days, they introduced this playlist where they claim skill is really not a factor that is heavily considered, and this actually led to more consistent, what you might call original Call of Duty experiences, lobbies where you'd have, you know, absolute sweat veterans and some newborn deer, and it was actually a really refreshing experience, leading to many people actually quite enjoying the beta and walking away from the beta feeling incredibly positive about the entire game. And leading into the full game, they've retained that same playlist, and matter of fact, they haven't really changed any of the parameters about how it works, but subjectively and more objectively, there's been some testing done to suggest that it doesn't really quite feel the same as it did in the beta in the full game, and that's probably for a lot of reasons. You know, not everybody who played the beta ended up buying the game, so the player pool is going to be much smaller, I'm sure. But still, as somebody who likes to play COD multiplayer and has, you know, maybe not been as into it in the past couple of years, but has really fond memories on a lot of the classics and poured literally thousands of hours into the old school Call of Duty multiplayers, to some degree, Black Ops 7 actually does feel like you would imagine it should. You have extremely varied lobbies, you have persistent lobbies again, which means you can matchmake with the same people after a round, and this is all very positive in making Call of Duty the more social and less manipulated experience that it should be. Also, when I talked about the campaign team earlier just really not understanding what Black Ops is, I don't think I would say that for the multiplayer experience. Matt Scronce is still, you know, in charge of calling the shots and doing design for BO7 MP, and he's a guy that's been around since Black Ops 1. He's somebody who I feel like really gets it still, and you can see that come through in the way that Black Ops 7 plays. Now, once again, I'm completely removing all of the gameplay stuff and, you know, the literal mechanics away from how they handle bundles and microtransactions and the collabs and all that kind of stuff. That's an entirely different beast, but just the core multiplayer mechanics are actually really fun. This is my favorite multiplayer in quite a number of years, which again is a shame given how poorly Black Ops 7 has sold and performed. It's literally one of the lowest selling CODs right now. It does play quite similar to Black Ops 6 when it comes to its feel. Obviously, the aesthetics and visuals are different, but for the most part, the mechanics either expand on or iterate the stuff that was introduced in BO6 with a couple of new features, most specifically the wall jump mechanic. I will say, in my opinion, this is the most underutilized feature of this multiplayer experience. I think I really would have preferred this time around for them just to commit to full-on jetpack movement again. It's been a very long time since we've had that, and I feel like it's come full circle to a point where that's what players would actually like to see return for the most part. We've had boots on the ground for, I don't know, 6 or 8 years. I almost said 6, 7, but I didn't. Point is, when we were at Treyarch and talking to them about this game before it released, you know, one of the biggest questions was, what are you going to do to justify this to be different to Black Ops 6? And again, really, for the most part, we didn't get satisfying answers, and I really would have think that it would go a long way if we had some kind of actual advanced movement system that would really differentiate it from BO6. The wall jump is decent, like it is fairly integrated here. Some of the maps are, you know, really built to take advantage of that, some not so much, but it's just kind of like a gimmick that I feel most people don't really use. It could definitely use some work to be integrated more smoothly into the game if they really wanted to commit to that as a, you know, movement option, but as is right now, it's there and you can use it, but I just don't feel like it's really core to the moment-to-moment gameplay of Black Ops 7 MP. With that being said, though, there is a lot of content. Obviously, there are like 16 brand new multiplayer maps, and we've got a whole bunch of remakes from BO2, you know, Raid, Nuketown and stuff. What's kind of funny is that we literally have Nuketown 2025 again. With every single Nuketown iteration, It's always been a different time setting, different zone, aesthetic, all of that, but now we just have like a remastered version of BO2's Nuketown again, which is appropriate given that it is 2025, but I think it's just kind of funny to point out. I do feel like the kill streaks are one of the high points of this MP, you know, on top of the actual core gameplay just being a solid foundation from BO6, but some of the smaller systems being iterated on from then. I really feel like the maps and kill streaks is where the game shines. The actual brand new maps they've made for this game are surprisingly delightful, and there are some ones that I feel like will end up being, you know, COD classics after a number of years. They're that well designed. And the streaks are legitimately good, they're fun, and they feel great to earn and get. Some of the CODs just haven't really been the best when it comes to the kill streak system, which is literally what defines a Call of Duty multiplayer, if you ask me. I will say a couple of things that do take away from the experience, however. Even though they completely outright canceled Carry Forward and have tried their best to show some restraint when it comes to what collabs they do and bundles they add to the game, as again, to not break that very delicate immersion, I can already see starting to creep in that direction that I really don't like. And one of the most obvious and blatant usages of this is literally the calling cards in the game. You can tell when they made this because when the Ghibli AI slop trend was going on, that is probably when they were developing some of these calling cards. There's like hundreds of these Ghibli slop calling cards in the game, and you already know the AI usage isn't just, you know, resignated to this one incident. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of AI calling cards and or maybe like other art pieces that have been generated. And I'm also going to say something maybe a little bit controversial here. This is, again, the separate beast that is completely away from the core mechanics of the multiplayer, which again, to me, are super fun. It feels like COD again. The low SPMM playlists are great, and it feels like that casual fun it should be. But what I really dislike, I think, is honestly the camos in this game. And it's become a little bit of a problem because what I've noticed is that Black Ops 7 now has hit that critical mass where there are too many gun camos. Now, I'm not really a camo grinder. That's not something that appeals to me. I like to look for my favorite camo of the entire selection. I get that one camo and then I pretty much play with it the rest of the year. I'm not a camo grinder, so just keep that in mind. But what I will say is that I feel Black Ops 7 has gone overboard with this. Just because you can make like hundreds of camos does not mean you should. And I compare this back to like old Call of Duty multiplayers where you had a much smaller track of camos to unlock. You maybe had like 12 per gun, and they were all pretty like realistic or, you know, in tone with the game. Think about the original Modern Warfare 2's gun camos. You had like the Autumn camo, which was the most extravagant out of all of them. And you still have like the military camos in BO7, but they're legitimately all filler. You play like one match of zombies or a couple of matches of MP, and you've already blown past all of these and gotten to like gold or, you know, the more crazy ones out there. Literally, all of the military camos in this game are filler. You unlock them so easily that they may as well not even exist. It's purely filler content. I just feel personally that I don't really know what point this happened, but there was a subtle paradigm shift where Call of Duty multiplayer and maybe even some of the other modes became less about playing it for the love of the game, and unlocking camos was kind of like the cherry on top. It was an added bonus, right? To where it now has become the main appeal, right? The entire like driving force of the content of the game is now to unlock camos, and the playing it for the love of the game and enjoying yourself comes secondary to the camo grind. I think those two being inverted has really changed the dynamics of MP for me, because I really still want to enjoy the game first and foremost, and camos feel like the cherry on top, as they should be. And also, this is kind of reflective in their non-ability to show restraint when it comes to collabs and other skins. In fairness, they have shown a lot more restraint compared to what they added in Black Ops 6. I mean, that game was insane. You had Ninja Turtles, you had Beavis and Butthead running around by the end. Black Ops 7, I mean, we're only, you know, a little past Season 1 right now, so there's still a lot of COD left to be added to the game, but as of right now, the collabs aren't too bad and nothing too immersion shattering. But, you know, I can imagine that as the game goes on, the player base dwindles a little bit, there is less, you know, incentive to hold back and just to kind of make that money. It just becomes more and more clear to me every single day that there are vastly different teams of people that are actually making the gameplay mechanics, the maps, and the, you know, core decisions of the multiplayer. I just feel like this team still gets it. They know it makes it fun. I'm really glad that they removed this, you know, the skill-based matchmaking playlist or whatever they had. It is really remains to be seen about whether Call of Duty will continue to use that. I can't imagine Infinity Ward's next game would be too thrilled about having to now condone to this sort of playlist. And also, Omni Movement, I'm not totally sure is going to live to see the light of day in future Call of Duty games. I personally like it for the most part. I do think it's foundational enough that maybe almost all FPS games should integrate this, but I also don't think that Infinity Ward will play ball, which might be a good thing because I always talk about how the studios need to make different decisions to differentiate themselves. So if Treyarch is really all in on the Omni Movement, that's what they're rolling with forward, and Infinity Ward kind of takes a step back and just does like either tack sprinting or just the normal Call of Duty classic feel of the sprint mechanic. I think them doing separate things is actually what Call of Duty needs at this point, because fundamentally that's what made both of their respective franchises great when we were in the classic COD era, is they all felt so different, so everybody kind of had a preference of whether they liked Black Ops more or Modern Warfare more. And as the studios have all sort of like homogenized and kind of making the exact same game year after year, then you get less of that differentiation that makes a game so special. And I feel like we need that now more than ever. We need studios doing different things that provide experiences for different kinds of people. Not every Call of Duty is going to appeal equally to everyone, and that's fine, and Call of Duty needs to recognize that that's okay. There are games that, you know, will just appeal to a certain type of player more than anything else, no matter what you do, and that is completely fine. That is literally the lifeblood of your studio and your game. I feel like mechanically and just all of the decisions, Black Ops 7 multiplayer is actually fantastic. I have a lot of good things to say about it. It's all of the peripheral stuff around it, right? The AI usage of calling cards, the AI Ghibli slop they have. You know, one of the things that I really talk about on this channel is that I promise, it is my promise to you, that I will never use AI to help make my videos. I just don't really believe that that's what the spirit of YouTube is and was, and what made this website so great. So I promise that AI will never be used in the creation of my videos. I even legitimately destroyed a Black Ops 7 case for real on my driveway just for this thumbnail. So if you want to make sure you're watching content that a human at least made, then this channel will always be a place where, you know, you can be assured of that. That means I will have my own human opinions, my own human errors, and if I make a mistake, it will be my mistake and not an AI's mistake. I think the problem as far as Call of Duty goes is that they can use AI and then kind of like pass off the responsibility for some of the things that aren't so great because it's like, oh, we didn't make it, this was an AI thing or whatever. I think it's certainly going in that direction. It allows them to avoid responsibility, which is not a good thing if you want to continue to see your game improve. But to be honest, like, I just think they need to be able to marry those two beasts together. The gameplay is great, and I would like to see it continue in this direction and continue to iterate and improve, but they really got to find some kind of middle ground that doesn't make all of the like microtransaction stuff and the free-to-play model of monetizing the game infest the actual integrity of the gameplay experience, because that's where it really muddies the waters. And I think COD multiplayer is at its best when it's at its most pure, and you can really feel that pureness in a lot of the systemic changes they've made to the matchmaking, right? The skill-based matchmaking reduction, persistent lobbies have gone such a long way of doing that. It's been great. It's also been really stellar in the fact that it stands on its own 2 feet and doesn't heavily rely too much on nostalgia, despite literally the main menu having like Black Ops 2 music and the UI obviously trying to emulate BO2. The actual maps, the modes, the weapons themselves, and thank God they canceled carry forward, because it would have just been a nightmare if everybody's running around with BO6 guns, which wouldn't really make sense in this game. We actually get to focus and have an emphasis on the new weapons, which was, you know, literally a life-saving call they made before the game launched. Look, I will unapologetically say that I really like Black Ops 7's multiplayer for all of its faults. I think it's really fun, and it does provide that classic Call of Duty experiences in doses. What I will say though is that even though I claimed in the campaign section that I feel like Black Ops should end, that doesn't necessarily mean that this kind of multiplayer experience needs to end. It just doesn't need to be Black Ops, you know what I mean? Like, you can have all of the mechanics, maps, and even weapons in the gameplay feel, and it doesn't really have to have the Black Ops logo slapped onto it. It's really just like the nostalgia of the multiplayer menu music, the remade maps they did that lean into the Black Ops legacy, but you could have a multiplayer built like this and it have nothing to do with Black Ops. So in me saying that, that doesn't mean I don't want them to continue this style of MP. It just, you can detach that from the IP and make it its own thing or make it a new thing. But what I fear, and and I feel like would be very bad and unfortunate for the Call of Duty series is that if they look at the performance of Black Ops 7 and say, hey, this is the game where we had, no skill-based matchmaking, we reduced it, and still we had the lowest player counts in history, okay, so we can't do that anymore. Back to the SBMM stuff, back to, all of the stuff we were doing before that clearly wasn't working, and even though that BO7 I think was just objectively a step in the right direction MP-wise, I can very easily see them looking at the data and then walking all of those back for not only Infinity Ward's game, but all the future iterations of what Call of Duty is doing going forward. I don't know if this no SBMM thing was just an experiment and a little test to see if it worked, but I think that there's a high danger of them looking at the data and drawing from that it was a complete failure and then never trying it again, which would be really sad given that this is literally my favorite MP in a long time, and I cannot stress that enough. Anyways, to sum it up, it's a multiplayer that is classic Call of Duty and has that DNA still on it. You can tell that these are people who love Call of Duty, they love the game, and are making something that they are familiar with. However, all of the peripheral stuff, the AI Ghibli slop calling cards, the induction of camos, and just it being a little bit too much, I don't feel like is that core team working on this small little thing. It's being infested by all of these grander systems around it that unfortunately this just happens to be where it all comes to play. But multiplayer is great, and I'm going to continue to play a lot of it because I think it's just really good casual fun again, and I've been quite enjoying myself, and I like it a lot more than Black Ops 6. But will that continue? I guess we'll have to wait until all of the seasons play out.
Ah, guten Tag, it is I, Dr. Edward Richthofen. And I'm here to encourage all of you to help my dear friend Chopper reach 1 million subscribers on the YouTubes. Yeah, you see, because he has 600,000 followers now, but with 400,000 more people, fans of the Doctor, of course, we can reach this million milestone. Yeah? So, go, subscribe, and don't be a Dummkopf like Dempsey. Yeah? Nobody likes Dempsey.
Part of the reason my reviews typically come out months later than the launch of the game is in part because I like to give the game and the studios the benefit of the doubt as far as letting the experience shape up to what it becomes by the end. As we are in the era of live service, it seems sometimes presumptuous to, pass judgment on a game off of its launch map in the first couple of DLCs. However, I don't exactly feel the same way this time. And while one day I will come back around, in the future to retrospectively analyze the BO7 Zombies package as a whole when all is said and done, just like I did with Black Ops 6. In this case, I believe I've seen enough already that I can confidently assume that the rest of the DLCs throughout the year will be more similar rather than less to what we already have. I feel the big picture, experience that we're having is largely already here, but will be occasionally enhanced with new maps that have slightly different features and mechanics. But by and large, the rest of the Black Ops 7 Zombies season is going to be the same. In fact, it's worse than just being the same from map to map. As we've established already, there's been actually very little progress made in truly innovating on core ideas and values of the Zombies mode. Now that it's been 6 years since the inception of modern zombies with the introduction of Black Ops Cold War. Since then, we've had Vanguard Zombies, Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, Black Ops 6, and now Black Ops 7. That is a total of 5 unique games, all with their own opportunity to take risks and try something different. Now, in your mind, think about all of the innovations and major gameplay differences from Black Ops Cold War to Black Ops 7 Zombies. Sure, we went from stuff like Ethereum upgrade trees to augments. We have major enhancements to boss fights. They've gotten so much better and more mechanically deep and interesting. We've gotten plenty other of minor changes and quality of life fixes and little things that definitely make the game feel better. But outside of those smaller quality of life things or enhancements to some of the mechanics, when it comes to the core foundational systems, what has really changed all that much? I mean, we have the same core weapon mechanics. All of the weapons work on a rarity-based damage system. We have a 3-tiered pack-a-punch system that works the same in all of the games. We have salvage, which is the currency other than essence. We have field upgrades that are identical from Cold War, give or take adding a few here and there. And we have more or less the same crafting table system and Wonder Fizz and perks on every single map without fail. So keep that in context and think about what I said earlier, that we have 5 games since the start of the modern era. Think about all of the innovation from Cold War to Black Ops 7. Once you have an image of that, do you know how much innovation was done in the same time, or at least same release of games? In those 5 iterations since Zombies started, we went from World at War to Black Ops 4. Think about all of the history in between those 2 games and how much the mode changed, foundationally. And with that same amount of time and, drops of releases, we haven't seen nearly that much innovation or major foundational changes to the game. I mean, we went from just a really simple survival sandbox mode to a full-on quest like RPG Easter egg based system, all in the span of 5 titles, where in Black Ops Cold War to Black Ops 7, it's pretty much the same, foundational FPS RPG game, but just with some enhancements to the mode. The point I'm making is that with a few exceptions, the Zombies mode has largely stagnated in the formula that it's very comfortable with now. We always talk about the modern Zombies formula with Warzone mechanics, which I don't really like the term Warzone mechanics because it's vague and not very descriptive about what it's actually talking about, but I understand what people mean when they say it. We've seen these Warzone mechanics since Cold War, and they haven't really changed since then, and now we're in Black Ops 7, a full 5 games away from where they initially started, where World at War to Black Ops 4 are totally different worlds. We just don't really see that same kind of push and change anymore, and that's largely because the leadership has remained the same over the last couple of years. What Black Ops 7 has done, however, is give us a more refined version of the Zombies experience that I would say BO6 brought to us. With Ashes of the Damned, we have a very interesting open world, but still round-based Zombies map, and Astra Malorum has been a much more traditionally sized Zombies map, a much more tight experience with a very cool setting and premise, and fun Easter eggs and boss fights on the both of them. But the major innovation to Zombies this year was something that the fans were asking for. Kind of. It's not really a classic Zombies mode, but we did end up getting Cursed, which is pretty much what I feel like the mode should be from the start. Cursed mode is basically a hardcore version of the standardized Zombies mode now, but I would argue this is what Zombies, the standardized mode, should be, and then we can move into, other stuff later. In Cursed mode, you start with a pistol, there's no HUD, it's very immersive, and it actually feels so much better to play than the standard mode, and I pretty much don't play standard other than if I'm hunting a brand new Easter egg or something like that. Otherwise, I'm pretty much always playing in Cursed, maybe with no relics. But the relics are what were meant to keep the Zombies community preoccupied and give stuff for the hardcore players to do. I think this is a great idea in theory, but I think some of the relics, and especially with the release of the new map, have gotten so tedious that they're almost not interesting for me to do. Those of you who hunt for relics yourself or have tried to go after them at any point, you can probably attest that some of them have gotten extremely obnoxious, and to me, they're not always worth going after, because what you get out of Curse mode, if you apply relics of different rarities and of different intensities, you can get like tier 4 Pack-a-Punch, you can get golden armor, and even an ultra weapon rarity upgrade, which is fun in and of itself, and you also get special weapon camos for completing the map's Easter egg in Cursed. But outside of that, all of the relics, or at least the vast majority of them, are subtractive in nature, meaning they take away features instead of adding anything meaningful to the game. Some add mimics, some take away your ability to buy extra perks. It's essentially the same system as Halo Skulls. You add modifiers that make the game more challenging, and this is something that I feel has been one of the best aspects to the Black Ops 7 Zombies offering, because without Cursed mode, I really think that both Ashes of the Damned and Astra Malorum could have just been Black Ops 6 DLC, which it kind of is, as again, they spent those couple of years after Cold War building the foundations to build Black Ops 6, and then BO7 is just an extension of that game. You could literally plop these maps into that prior title and it would be just fine. And again, my point with Zombies isn't that it's bad at all. In fact, I think it's really good in its own merit, and I think it is better, at least so far, than Black Ops 6. The rest of the DLCs may change my opinion, but so far it's looking good, and the maps are genuinely quality and a lot of fun. The boss fights are excellent here. There's a lot of really neat things to discover in each and every single map. But what what I guess I'm getting at is that it's been 5 titles of zombies, and, you know, in the same amount of time that we've seen the massive innovation to the OG zombies experience, we've not really seen that for the modern era. I just think that this kind of modern formula has run its course, and this maybe is, you know, adding to the current Black Ops fatigue that a lot of us have. And I think for zombies in particular, when it goes away for a couple of years and it takes a break and then it comes back looking very different and challenging and in a way that makes us learn the game all over again, I feel like that's what zombies players really love, and that's what makes the community come together. We've had too many years of too similar gameplay that it's not really special. Now, they also gave us survival maps, which I put in quotes because they're not really survival in the way that they advertise them as being similar to Black Ops 2, because the Black Ops 2 survival offerings all did something really different to make the actual experience different from one another. So for example, Bus Depot had no perks. That was like a really hardcore way to play survival. Nuketown, on the other hand, had perks that came in random orders and, you know, a variety of other little things to make it different. Town was probably the most straightforward. It had a Pack-a-Punch machine that was immediately available. You could get the mystery box and a couple of different perk options, but basically all of these survival maps, even though that they were the same mechanics, they would actually rearrange them and remix them in a way that provided a much different experience to what they were. But the problem with the survival maps in BO7 is that not only are they just, you know, cutouts from Ashes of the Damned that's being repackaged as a survival experience, but they all have the same stuff on it. Same Wonder Fizz, same crafting table, same equipment, all of that. So really, there's not much reason to play Farm Survival over Exit 115 Survival other than the pure aesthetics and layout. There's literally no difference at that point between the two. Now, the rest of the DLC season for Black Ops 7 is already extremely promising. The story has literally been leagues better than what Black Ops 6 had already. The maps so far have been unique in their approaches, and the boss fights, in my opinion, are Treyarch's best, period. But despite all of this, and even with Cursed Mode included, I really do think after BO7, which will largely be the same formula as BO6, which was already largely the same formula as many of its predecessors, I think it's time for the modern zombies formula to end. I think most of us can agree that despite this formula actually being pretty good and working quite well and being very flexible for a variety of games and experiences, obviously, it is truly time for a new paradigm shift if you want the COD Zombies community to live on. Part of the reason COD Zombies is still alive to this day is because of the endless arguments and discussions we have with each other about what games are good and bad and which maps suck ass. It's the dialogue that has kept this community alive, but if you make too many games that are too similar and all the same, even if they're pretty good, there will be nothing left to discuss and the community sentiment will fizzle out. Treyarch and Kevin Drew wanted to make the new Zombies formula the most accessible mode for the highest number of players, which, you know, is a noble goal to a degree, but what made old Zombies feel so magical in the past was that it was truly the community's game mode that ran with it, and only the people most hardcore really got into it and understood it.
And this choice may have truly been the planting of the seed of its success. The reason for this is that I think by making it a truly out-of-the-way experience that not everyone would get, but only making it an experience that the most committed, the faithful, who played through our entire campaign experienced first, they found it, they loved it. I mean, and then they get this entirely new fun co-op gameplay experience afterwards, and the reaction was overwhelming.
Zombies was always a game for the community. It was a game for the misfits, the people that didn't really quite fit neatly into one package of the Call of Duty community. Treyarch and Mark Lamia understood the fact that over-homogenizing the Zombies mode and making it too similar to the rest of the Call of Duty experience would disturb that delicate ecosystem that the community organically came up with for Zombies. And even though Treyarch intentionally let Zombies be a slightly less accessible mode for the sake of the players truly making it their own from their heart, I've always said that the modern Zombies formula is pretty good, and it will probably continue to be pretty good for the rest of BO7's DLCs. I do think that Black Ops dying or ending doesn't necessarily mean the end of COD Zombies or that it needs to die with it, but again, a major paradigm shift needs to happen because we've had this formula since Cold War. Can there be a COD Zombies without Black Ops though? I mean, it's an open question and one that I don't get paid enough to have an answer for, but for the sake of longevity and for the continued success of the mode, Black Ops 7 Zombies must be the end of the zombies formula as we know it, and it needs to venture into something different. I will always love COD Zombies, even if it changes or goes away for a while, and I still believe it can be an amazing experience, as it still is if we're being honest, but the community in the game mode needs genuine evolution after this game has concluded, and Zombies needs to go back into the hands of the community rather than the hands of the more controlling publisher. So, where does this leave us? The actual game, despite the campaign, is objectively pretty good, but I mean, if you're Treyarch, seriously, what do you do now? In hindsight, we couldn't have expected massive differences from BO6 to 7 because they were made practically at the same time. However, with the next few years of Call of Duty releases, it will be a long time before Treyarch has another opportunity to strike again, meaning they have the time to course correct right now. So what choice do you make? Do you double down on Black Ops, considering your entire building and studio identity is revolving around this one single IP, or do you venture into a brand new idea that isn't Black Ops, but trying to bravely carve out a new niche for your studio again? I've been lucky to have been around for so long and see the ins and outs of development and these studio workings, and I've seen Treyarch's evolution over time. I just wonder if they have what it takes to let go of Black Ops at this point, even if it's the thing that's actually holding them back. And look, I really don't want Black Ops to die. I want the bastardized parody version of it to die. But even now, I would still gladly welcome a true, authentic Black Ops experience any day. But is that even possible? I guess we'll find out in 2028 with Black Ops 8. I'll see you guys when I'm 30.